I got the pleasure of sitting down with Stéphan Lacombe, Vice President Buildings West for Pomerleau, and he spoke with me about how he ended up in construction, his rise up Pomerleau's ranks, the company's strategy for the West, and of course, the coolest construction projects he has on the horizon. So without further ado, here is that discussion. Welcome back to the Digging In podcast. And as you can see, I have a special guest, Stéphan Lacombe. Stéphan, why don't you introduce yourself and tell people who you're with and what you do?
Thanks, Russ. Stéphan Lacombe. I'm with Pomerleau construction company. I've been here in Vancouver now for 4 years. I'm the regional vice president for our buildings business unit, and I've been with the company for 17 years.
I think that's something that really stood out to me when I was doing a little bit of research, is spending 17 years at one company is very interesting. But I think first, let's back up. How did you even get into the construction sector? That's something I'm always curious about because we're always wanting to get more people into this industry and to work in it. How did you find yourself in the construction sector? How did you find your way?
It's there's quite a few steps to that, and growing up in a small town in Elmer, Quebec, on the Quebec side of the Ottawa River there, just always enjoyed deconstructing and rebuilding stuff, right? The typical kid that loved to play with Legos and that now gets to play with Legos, in real life. Very happy childhood, everything, two loving parents that worked hard. Nobody really in construction. I went to Cégep there, which is kind of a college. Took a technical degree in building mechanics. And that was going to pretty much be my career, right? Just working for maybe a museum in Ottawa or something like that, on the building mechanics side, on the maintaining the equipment and all that stuff, right? And actually, I had a girlfriend at the time that was looking into university, and she's the one that kind of encouraged me to look at engineering at university, and I'll forever be grateful for that. And that took me to Montreal for university in construction engineering. And the rest is a little bit history, right? I started working in the industry and bounced around for a few years. But finally, I had some friends that from university that actually started at Pomerleau right out of school, and they kept telling me about the company. I had a very good friend actually that kept telling me I needed to meet, his boss and go work for Pomerleau, and it was such a great company. And I remember thinking, take it easy. Like it's just a company, right?
Yeah, relax.
Yeah, just relax. It's just a job here. Finally, I did go for the interview, and it took a few weeks, honestly, to just kind of understand what he was saying, and it just fell in love with the culture and the people, and it's been a fun ride so far.
Well, I feel like it says a lot about a company when the people who are already working there are aggressively trying to recruit you and get you into the fold. They're like, no, trust me, you got to get in here. That's like got to be probably the best advertisement there is.
Absolutely.
And so 17 years, what do you think has kept you at Pomerleau rather than bouncing around and, trying different things, different companies, and doing that kind of route?
Well, I mean, and not to be too precise, but it's 17 years and 4 days. Not
Right.
that, right? Not that
Right,
I'm
it's
counting
true.
days or anything. I just celebrated a work anniversary, so that's it's a bit funny. But it's again, it's all about the people. I've had the privilege to work with some of the brightest minds in construction. It's not a lot of people will say that their company is the best and all that, obviously, but it's almost like we're drinking the Kool-Aid, but it's not a fire hose Kool-Aid, right? It's not being pressured into us. It's really we're choosing to drink the Kool-Aid, and it's all about the core values of the company. I mean, how many construction companies can say that they have love as a core value, right? Not very many, and you wouldn't think that, but it's an actual part of our business, of our culture. It's like love for the people, love for the challenges, love of the different possibilities that we have. It's super diverse company. You can pretty much do any kind of construction you want, and it's open to that.
I didn't know that. I think that's really interesting because I think a lot of people have this perception of construction as being a very rough and gruff kind of industry, and having love, the word love as a core value, maybe wouldn't people wouldn't guess that
No,
as something. It wouldn't be something that I would guess for a construction company.
and it takes it takes courage to say those kinds of values and actually hold them. And we came out with that, and the five values have been part of our culture now for the last 10 years.
So in those 17 years and 4 days, you've risen through the ranks, and now you've reached the level that you're at. I think a lot of our listeners and a lot of our readers are people who they're young, they're trying to grow their construction career, they're trying to advance, they're trying to further their careers. What advice do you have for getting some of that career success and navigating that corporate world and furthering your career? What kind of habits or tricks or different things do you think have worked for you?
It's a great question. I think at the end of the day, I mean, some of these are pretty basic, but it is pretty basic, right? The secret to success isn't I thought of a new way of building things. That's not why I am where I am. It's really you have to show up, right? You have to not just show up on time, but show up early. Show up and be there and be present in the role, right? And look the part, right? You're representing the company. You need to look the part. You can't leave the Metallica death metal t-shirt at home, right? You have to.
Like dress for the job you want kind of stuff.
Exactly. And that's definitely the basic part. The other part is you want to be part of the solution, right? I think too often early on in careers, you kind of get caught up in the static, in the noise sometimes, and all the different companies have it, and people start criticizing this and criticizing that, and that's fine as long as it comes with like solutions, right? So be part of the solution, be part of the person that people want to work with, right? Not by not being present and not having your comments or your way of thinking be present, but a lot of people know me in the company, know that I am a very critical person and I will challenge everything, but not just challenge for the sake of challenging, but challenging to try to get better and try to make things better for our people, for our business, for the company, right? And care about what your colleagues are doing. It seems like a simple thing, but too often I've seen in different industries, but especially in construction, you'll get a project manager who's hyper focused on contract and on contract awards and dollars and cents, and won't pay attention to the execution part and to his superintendent's needs and wants on site, and say, well, that's not my job. My job is this, and
Yeah.
it's
Not my
all
job.
it's not my
Not my
job, right?
problem.
Not my problem. So you have to care about your colleague, and you have to care about what he's living on a day-to-day basis. And my biggest success stories have been, actually caring about what the superintendent needs on site, and him, and that's the great part, is actually caring about the dollars and cents and the contracts as well, right? So that's the strong bond that you build, and that's how you get to success for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned you're often a very critical person, not because you're negative, but you're
No, no.
trying to make sure something. It seems like in my mind it's almost like an engineering approach. If you build something, you want to poke it, you want to stress it, you want to make sure that this is something that can withstand, different forces. It can be strong and it can stay up when things are tough. But if that's the case, you have to question things. You have to stress test them a little bit.
You do, and that's again part of the culture at the company is really a collegial kind of approach to things, right? It's not your idea, it's not my idea, it's our idea by the time we get out of the room, and that comes from trust, and it comes from being able to challenge those things, right? And being able to to exactly what you said, like stress test it. If we do that and we bang away at it and it still stands up, then we'll have no problem showing that to the clients, the consultants, our trade partners. Like it's already a better solution, right?
So tell me a bit about Western Canada. I Pomerleau is no stranger to Western Canada. I know they've done a bunch of really cool projects, but it seems like there's been a bigger push. Tell me about kind of what has happened so far in Canada, or sorry, Western Canada with Pomerleau, and what some of the strategy is for the future for Western Canada and some of the cool stuff that you have planned.
Yeah, no, we've been here for a while, and I guess it kind of depends how you look at it. Our Pomelo brand came to the West through an acquisition of Westboro 10 years ago, but they had been here in this market for for many years, and recently there were more acquisitions. Right, the last 4 years. 4 years ago, we acquired ITC Construction Group. And just recently, last year, Farmer construction on the island. It's been a really fun ride for the last few years, and it's the view is to make sure that we have visibility on all these large projects on, say, major projects like the Surrey Langley SkyTrain stations and the Fraser River Tunnel project. That's our major projects division, business unit, I should say, because division means an actual division. So it's
There's
not divided.
division, yeah.
Exactly. It's not divided. It's just a specialty in another business unit. There's civil infrastructure, which is here as well. They're doing great projects on their side. There's my division, which is the building unit, business unit, and we're looking at all of these different sizes of projects and different types of projects. It's a really fun market because it is the one place in Canada where we have all of these different business units, including ITC and farmer and buildings and civil and major projects all in one. So it's been pretty exciting so far.
Yeah, let's talk about acquisitions a little bit. What is the process like for conducting an acquisition? Like, maybe we start with how do you even determine who you might want to acquire, and what are some of the process you have to go through for integrating those companies into Pomerleau and their values like love and these different things? Because you want that, I'm assuming, to be like consistent across all the different business divisions. You want people to be working on one team. What is it like to try and go through that process?
It's an interesting one, and it's especially something that doesn't happen overnight, right? So, especially the ITC, I can talk to that acquisition. It started many years ago when our both our CEOs, which was Pierre Pomerleau at the time, and Doug McFarlane for ITC, got to know each other. They started talking. They started having conversations. They saw that there was mutual kind of values there, and then through the years, it developed into a form of friendship. And at the end of the day, when things actually started making sense financially and all that, the fit was already kind of vetted, right? The values were there, the approach was there. Then there's always the due diligence, which is also part of that, figuring out the fit, interviewing the people, making sure that it is an actual fit. And it works out, but you have to vet it. It has to be you have to meet on a value level, I think, for it to actually work. And not all acquisitions are full integrations as well. In this case, ITC remains a standalone company. They all report to the mothership, but they're a standalone company. They do residential, from Monday to Friday and sometimes on Saturday. And that's their market. We do on the building side in my business unit, we do everything institutional, commercial, light industrial. So it's not exactly it's complementary. It's not one and the other. It's not one or the other. It's one and the other.
I think it's interesting you mentioned, residential and, institutional, commercial. I'm curious, as Pomerleau makes kind of more of a push in Western Canada, what are some of the areas of opportunity? We see these headlines about, the condo markets crashing and stuff like that. I'm curious, and like, maybe a shift towards more rental work. I'm curious what you're seeing, and what are some of the areas of biggest opportunity in the coming years that you see in Western Canada?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I think one of the for sure things are projects get more and more complex. One great example of kind of the combined offer that we can do with like the one Pomerleau approach, but with all these different areas of specialty, is the Belleville Ferry Terminal, for
Yes.
instance, right? It has marine work, civil work, building on top. It brings in a lot of our moving parts on the Pomerleau side. So I think that's definitely something that we'll be able to see more and more of in this market, like as projects are more and more complex. The power of Pomerleau is having that combined and diverse group that we can look at marine work, wharf work. We just happen to have had some positive news on a data center not later than yesterday. So
Oh, exciting.
very happy about that. So for sure, data centers are part of. It's actually a national focus that we have and an expertise that we've developed out east that we're now bringing to the west, right? So it's the bench depth and the depth of the company of being able to pull on some expertise that we've developed out east because we had a bigger market share, and bringing that to the west and being able to be opportunistic with it. The other, obviously, budgets were announced, and some projects, some provincial projects were kind of iced for a while.
Repaced, I think
Yes,
they
repaced,
said it.
exactly.
That's how they worded it, yes.
That's yeah, another way of saying it's iced for a while, but
Yeah.
absolutely, and but some weren't, and we are working on other healthcare projects right now in pre-con, and so I think there's still a lot of opportunity, a lot of things coming, and I think the fact that we're such a diverse company will be able to kind of answer the call.
Yeah, you have, like, that agility where, if you need to all of a sudden shift in a different direction, or there become an opportunity presents itself in one sector that is just too good, you have the ability in-house to kinda, like,
Pull,
attack it, yeah.
yeah, pull on resources and get her done.
Let's talk a bit more about the organization. I know you've mentioned a little bit about the divisions. Your division, you have some other ones. Explain to me, and I know you mentioned with the Belleville project.
Yep.
How does that work? How is Pomerleau organized with these different divisions, and how is that a strength for certain kinds of projects?
Well, the beauty of it again is it's the whole one Pomerleau kind of approach, right? That being said, there are different business units and there are different expertise, right? And you do have to stay nimble and agile. But I mean, bringing somebody who's just worked on a hospital and putting them on building a wharf, it might not be the best use of that person's skills, right? Or vice versa. So those entities exist, and specialties exist within the company, but we have to make sure that we're communicating on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and that's a bit my role on my side to make sure that we are talking with the civil teams and making sure that we know what they're working on, and if there are opportunities there where we can kind of bring in the buildings team or vice versa, and we do that on a regular basis with all the leadership in the West.
Let's talk projects. From our publication, some of the stories that get the most clicks, the most reads, are just simply cool projects.
Yeah.
People love reading about building cool stuff. What are some of the projects that Pomerleau is working on right now, or has recently worked on? You and your team, that you think is really cool and that you're most proud of.
Yeah, I mean, we're proud of everything we've done so far. Obviously, in the West, our first project here was a $2 million clinic renovation, and we're super proud of it because that was our first project for buildings in the West. Obviously, Belleville is kind of a good story, and it's not just a good story, but it's actually going well on site, and the teams are really synced and synergizing, because buildings and civil are working together, and it just makes sense. The actual site is like a postage stamp, and we have to kind of maximize and be efficient. And if we weren't like a completely integrated company actually doing that, it'd be really tough. So so far it's a beginning
Hmm.
stage, it's first year into the construction, but it's been going well. Um, Other projects, I mean, we are involved, as I said, on the Surrey Langley SkyTrain stations. That's a large JV that Pomerleau's part of. Fraser River Tunnel, there's,
Oh, huge tunnel. Yeah.
yeah, lots of conversations going on about that, but that's a huge project for us. Very proud of that going forward. We've done some great work on the water wastewater side, Anasis wastewater
This is just
project.
like the greatest hits because like
Yeah,
I mean I've lived here my whole life. I'm like these are all like the iconic projects that are happening
yeah.
right now.
Yeah, yeah. Wood fiber LNG, a civil team and marine team is up there. We and it's different scales as well, right? We're very proud of a project we're doing up in North Van. It's a school, K to 12 school, and it's going to be delivered this year, and there'll be kids in it, and it's that's a great story as well, right? So each project has a great story.
I mean, one thing that comes to mind, like, what does it mean to you? You obviously you're delivering schools, transit, some energy with wood fiber and all this stuff and water tunnels. That's going to serve the people of this region for decades and decades. Like, what does it mean to you to be part of, providing, school where children can go and get taught, where there's parents, people wanting to start families. I'm curious. I know this wasn't part of the questions, but like, I'm curious how does that make you feel to be part of building kind of the social and actual building infrastructure of BC and Western Canada?
It's the rewarding part, right? It's the being able to these structures stay, right? I'll be able to drive to around that school, and I'll be able to tell my daughters, listen, we participate in making this a reality for these kids playing in this yard, right? Same thing when we'll go to Victoria and we'll be able to say, hey, look at this ferry terminal. Look at all these people that are traveling to go see friends, family, whatever. We were part of that. We actually helped make that a reality. So it's a really cool part of this industry. Like whatever you do, it doesn't just fade away. It stays there for a very long time.
Now let's talk challenges because you've been in the industry a long time. I've been covering this sector for about a decade, and I would have never guessed what's happened in the past, year or 2 years. It seems like every year there's just something new and different, and you could say exciting, I guess. But maybe, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges the construction industry faces right now that you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, it's cost certainty is practically impossible right now. Is it's actually no, it's not so doom and gloom. Certain things kind of even themselves out as well. There's a little bit less work for an industry that was kind of overworked. So things are getting into a pace that makes a little bit more sense for everybody. So I think that will have kind of a positive effect on costs. But things outside of our control, outside of even this country, are in constant kind of turmoil, and it just seems like we'll just never be able to put a pin in the right price for the right project. So yeah, for sure, cost certainty is just seems like it's in a tailspin since COVID, essentially, right? It's been a tougher one. The other thing we're seeing, obviously, is lack of qualified labor, and that again, it's not just doom and gloom. I think there's opportunity there as well, right? Let's simplify certain steps of construction. Let's innovate. Let's find different ways of doing things. let's prefabricate things. So there's a lot of that will be, it's catching up. Innovation is catching up to that and will help us kind of alleviate some of that pressure on labor. Um, and I think, the last one, which we actually do have control over, well, not you and I, but is just the speed at which some of these projects are coming. The bureaucracy around actually getting them to start digging a hole, right?
Yes.
That part is something that people and government have an impact on, and we need to keep the pressure on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we've seen some headlines recently where major players were asked, "Do you want to be involved in, building this piece of infrastructure?" And they're like, "No, thanks. The process is too long and onerous and challenging. We can't afford the risk.
Yeah,
Can't do it."
and the risk profile makes no sense.
It doesn't make sense. Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. It is. It's a battle. We need to keep trying to push that through.
I mean, I think we shouldn't just focus on the negative. I'm curious, what are some encouraging things? Like, I know you kind of mentioned that while obviously it's challenging to find qualified labor, but like the silver lining is, I think it's pushing the industry to innovate more, and maybe we're seeing more innovation than we might have seen had we had like a surplus of labor. What are some of the bright spots or good things that you see in the industry that encourage you and inspire you?
Yeah, I think innovation is definitely moving into the construction industry. It forever, it until recently, it really didn't change from 60 years ago of
People
how we
like
were
to talk
building.
about it.
But they do. They like to think that everything is
Yeah.
innovative, but it really didn't change that much. And I think right now it is adding a lot of interest to the field, and maybe that'll be kind of the push that we need and that we get to involve the next generation, right? So I think that the fact that we can look at potentially having a younger person, instead of gaming in their basement, they're actually operating a tower crane that's 20 kilometers away, and that is actually working on a job site in that respect. So
That's cool.
that'd be, that'd be amazing, right? And that'd be using that capacity and that kind of 3D view of things, right? So I think that'll be something that will hopefully engage and interest the younger generations.
Now, in all your years in construction, is there one or like maybe a series of projects, something that stands out to you that you're particularly proud to have been involved in? That because it seems like every person I talk to in construction, there's a few projects that they're like, yeah, I built that.
That
I was
was
involved in
yeah.
that was me. Is there a project like that for you that you think of very fondly that you're particularly proud of?
I'm proud of all of them,
Of
and I
course.
know that's super
It's like, which is
cliche.
your favorite child?
Of
You
course,
can't say.
yeah, I can't say it in front of the other child, right? Obviously.
Right.
But interestingly, I tried to thought and think back at different projects, and I've always learned something on each and every project, from a small bank I did early on in my career to the largest projects I worked on as a PM. But I think right now the project I'm most proud of is kind of developing this business unit in this market, right? It's because that's a project, right? It's got a schedule, it's got a budget, it's got people, it's got milestones, and that's the one that knock on wood, so far so good. We're developing good relationships with trade partners, clients. We're actually building a great team that that has a really cool culture in our office, and people want to be part of the success of the business unit. So, and that's professionally, that's really my proudest moment. And personally, moving out here with my wife and my two teenage daughters was our biggest personal accomplishment. So, some people move from country to country. We moved in the same country, right? But still, it was a huge undertaking for us personally, and I'm happy to say that all three girls are thriving and doing great. So another proud moment there.
wrapping up here, I think the elephant in the room that we have to address is you clearly have one of the most luxurious and impressive beards in construction. What are some of the keys to caring for such a mane? How do you keep it so trim, so nice, so bright? What are the tips here? Because I got nothing going on.
I appreciate that. It's funny enough. It's actually like a construction project. It's like you need to be consistent. You need daily check-in. So you need to do daily work, the right tools, of course, and if you ignore it for a while, then it just goes right off the rails. Yeah.
A lot of professional development lessons here. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Stéphan. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying the West Coast. Welcome. I'm glad your family's having a great time.
Thanks a lot, Russ. This has been great.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.